Hi, this is Thursday the 12th of January 23. This is the first bulletin, Labour bulletin from the Democratic Alliance with regard to the effect of the Labour situation over the holiday period and maybe some of the shenanigans that we've seen whilst we've all been on some leave and we're welcoming people back to work. So thank you for listening to us. And thank you for taking an interest. Please share this if you find it interesting. We're going to keep doing them every week, and hopefully we're going to expose some of the problems within the Department of Employment and Labour. Well, the first thing, an absolute disaster. We had this madcap investment scheme that you won't believe what I'm going to tell you. The Unemployment Insurance Fund has monies invested with the Public Investment Corporation, the PIC. So the UIF invests the monies with the PIC. The PIC in turn are supposed to look after those monies and invest it in due course to make sure that it grows and that it keeps its value, and that when staff eventually have to receive the unemployment insurance monies, like we saw over the COVID-19 exercise, where people desperately needed money, they weren't getting any salary, and the UIF is reporting that they were slowly running out of money. Well, obviously they had to draw money from the PIC, and when they were drawing money from the PIC, they were watching it very carefully that none of those monies ran out, as this money belongs to the staff of South Africa. It doesn't belong to government, doesn't belong to the employers. Employers deduct it from employees' salaries. They hand it over to the receiver of revenue, who in turn gives it to the UIF, who gives it to the PIC to invest. Well, the commissioner of the UIF decided that he wanted to invest some monies, when I say some, many millions of rands, into a company that was newly formed, into a company that had no background, no history, no premises. There was nothing. It was a shell of a company that they wanted to invest literally hundreds of millions of rands of the employees' money into this company. One of the directors of this company is in fact the chairman of Productivity South Africa, which is an entity within the Department of Employment and Labour. Well, when questioned about this, the UIF commissioner said, no, it's safe, it's good. They want to invest this money into this company because they've come up with some strange scheme where they're going to try and create jobs. This was then endorsed by not only the commissioner of the UIF, but also the director general of the Department of Labour. They both said, no, this is a good investment. When asked, well, what does it entail? What are they going to do to try and create jobs? They said, no, well, that's they're going to find out later on. So there's a company that doesn't exist. It's an empty company. It doesn't exist other than on paper. It's been registered. And it's an idea that doesn't exist either because they didn't know what it was going to be. And they were going to take hundreds of millions of rands, not of their money, of the employees' money of South Africa, and put this into this scheme, this madcap scheme. Well, when everyone started shouting about this, we only found it out just after the Christmas period. People started shouting about this, including me. The minister got wind of it, and the minister said, well, he's going to stop it at this stage and he's going to investigate it himself. Well, you might recall, about 3 years ago, the PIC took some of the UIF money with the UIF permission and invested it in a strange company that, again, that I don't think really existed, and that money's gone missing. We asked them about 2 years ago to investigate where the money is. Have they prosecuted anyone? I don't see any result of that prosecution at all. So here was another madcap scheme that they were about to embark upon and lose, let's call it 100 million rand. I don't know where they're coming from, but it just shows you that you've got to be awake. You've got to watch them like a hawk, because the money will disappear very quickly. I mean, the mind boggles when you think of it. In any other democracy in the world, the minister would have had to fall on his sword. The Two individuals, the UIF Commissioner and the Director General of the department, would have been dismissed. I mean, how can you even make this up? I don't think Lewis Carroll of Alice in Wonderland could have made up something as mad as this. This is certainly the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. So this is Michael Bagram of the Democratic Alliance, the Labour report, and we're facing this madcap scheme. Well, other things. I mean, it goes from worse to worse. It doesn't get better, it goes from worse to worse. What's happened is the UIF Commissioner decided to go on an oversight visit to some of his workplaces where they have UIF dispersed and the labour centres. And he went to one of these labour centres, which is good. I commend the Commissioner for going to the labour centre. But the reality is, when he arrived at the labour centre, the security guard didn't recognise him and asked him for some money as a bribe before he came inside. Now, the Commissioner then, quite rightly, was a bit upset. I'm not sure if he was surprised, but he was a bit upset, and he has now indicated that he's going to investigate this. Well, I'm sending a message out now to the Commissioner of the UIF. Go and have a look at all your centres. They are a complete mess. People are bribed every day. People can't go in without paying. People stand in massive queues. It is a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. We have asked this Commissioner to look into it for years. Now he's experienced it himself, where he was asked for money. Luckily he was asked for money, and at least now he knows that there's a problem, and that problem isn't going away. So I'm putting out a challenge to the Commissioner: hire a private detective or a few, go to the various centres and see what actually takes place. See what the public of South Africa have to go through when they have to get their UIF monies. It's really interesting, and of course it's disgusting at the end of the day. Well, also what we see, and after a question put by the Democratic Alliance in Parliament to the Minister about the Post Office. Now, just bear in mind, the Post Office is almost bankrupt. In fact, my colleague Kachalia has said it is bankrupt. They don't have money, they can't pay their rental. Well, what happened is they went on a spending spree for the senior staff and for the politicians, and that spending spree over 4 years was over 100 million rand. They spent 100 million rand, I think it's 104, on entertainment, on travel, on hotels, on food, you name it, they had a party over COVID-19 lockdown. The travel and the spending of over 100 million rand. Well, what's more interesting than all of that, during that period, they did not pay over the staff. They deducted money from the staff for UIF, for the compensation fund, and for PAYE, and the Post Office didn't pay it over. No one's prosecuted anyone. So again, a challenge. We're now at the beginning of 2023, January 2023. Commissioner, press charges. Find out who the seniors are in the Post Office and press charges. They haven't paid their UIF. If you and I didn't pay our UIF for our staff, we'd be in trouble. Well, this has been years now. The Post Office hasn't paid it over. Then we have another issue. Finally, Pravin Gordhan has come forward and said Eskom and many of the parastatals are lacking in skills. The senior staff don't have the skills to run the parastatal, in particular Eskom. Well, we've been saying that for years. They went on a retrenchment spree to get rid of all the professionals they could get rid of, paid them good money for their retrenchment so they could have cadre deployment. You could put in the people that you want instead of the actual professionals that could run the show. And what's happened? They can't run the show. And we've seen that. Obviously, we see that every day with Eskom, which is a nightmare. But we're seeing it with all the other parastatals, all the state-owned enterprises. All the experts are gone. And when, in fact, some of the experts said they would come back to Eskom to help out, they weren't given the opportunity to come back, even at no salary. So Interesting. We've got a whole lot of other issues that I'll speak about next week. Thank you for listening to me. It's Michael Bagram. This is our first broadcast from the Democratic Alliance on the Labour Report, January 2023. Thank you ever so much.